how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. Today, excitingly, we have our green screen set up, so we finally got a virtual background. Hopefully it looks a little bit better. We're still trying to fine-tune things to make it perfect and to get the image really crisp, but at least there's no more SFS kitchen, no more exclusive views into our countertop. All that good stuff is now gone, and hopefully going forward, this will be a feasible solution to that problem. So if you heard a little chuckle in the background, that's Eric just hanging out behind the green screen here, as now he can stay in the room while we're recording. So a bunch of good stuff going here moving forward on the SFS channel. We've got Thrive Fantasy up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. When you go on there, deposit between $10 and $100 using promo code SIZZLE. You will get yourself an instant deposit match bonus and a free month of SFS Gold on us for helping us out and supporting their platform over there. So today we're going to be talking some must-sit wide receivers for Week 8 fantasy action. We're not going to waste any more time. Let's hit the intro and get right into it. Alrighty, here we go, diving into our first player, Brandin Cooks. Actually, before we get into that, I want to recap our success and accuracy from our Week 7 must-sit wide receiver picks. We hit on all of them except for one, that being Corey Davis, who only had 47 yards receiving in what we expected to be a tough matchup for Zach Wilson, who actually got knocked out of that and sustained a PCL sprain. Only 47 yards for Corey Davis. But then Mike White comes in off the bench and actually had a pretty impressive touchdown connection with Davis, albeit only about 4 yards, I believe. So that touchdown kind of saved him, pulled him out of the mud there, and boosted his fantasy production up to 12 points in half PPR scoring. But other than that, Tyler Lockett, 2 fantasy points in half PPR. We had him on our list last week. Henry Ruggs, a mere 4 points, taking on that Philadelphia Eagles defense. Allen Robinson, only 2 points against Tampa Bay. That Bears offense continues to struggle passing the football. And then both of our Giants wide receiver picks that we talked about, Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay, ruled out for that performance. So they didn't even suit up. We literally talked about 2 players in case one of them wasn't able to go, and neither of them were able to push through their injuries and get out there on the field. So hopefully those guys can get healthy, back to the field, and operate for that Giants offense here in Week 8 and moving forward this season. But it's been a rocky road for that whole offensive health and just having players available. Saquon's been banged up. Danny Dimes, was he knocked out of a game with put in concussion protocol against Dallas? It's been a shaky year for them. But into our picks here for Week 8. Brandin Cooks, our first must-sit wide receiver here in Week 8. Houston taking on the Los Angeles Rams. The one thing that I have identified that's really keeping Brandin Cooks' ceiling back has been quarterback play. And the first week of the season and the next part of that game when he had Tyrod Taylor, he was putting up fantastic numbers. He was getting deep shots downfield, being targeted at an efficient rate, and picking up a lot of yardage in the production department. But since Davis Mills has taken over, it's been a significant drop-off, and despite the fact that game script has still been in a favorable situation for this Texans offense to go out and get garbage time yards, they've struggled to consistently feed Brandin Cooks the football, who, in my opinion, is easily their best offensive player. They need to prioritize getting him the ball more. Tyrod Taylor is back at practice and expected to be in the starting lineup in the foreseeable future here within the very near realm of things, maybe the next 1 to 2 weeks or so. But the expectation now, at least, is that Davis will start at least one more game here. You're traveling to play Jalen Ramsey. Brandin Cooks obviously facing his former team. That's tough coverage. I think the expectation at this point for a lot of defensive coordinators is if you take Brandin Cooks away in this passing game, there are very few other options that can really hurt you in that passing game for the Houston Texans. So if you just take Brandin Cooks away, it should be a pretty easy road to completely dictate that football game for this Rams team. So staying away from Brandin Cooks again here in Week 8. Again, I'm looking forward to Tyrod Taylor's return because I think that is a very good sign for Cooks' production in this offense. DeVante Parker, very impressive last week in his return. Taking on the Buffalo Bills this week, though, this is a tough matchup he struggled with back in Week 2 earlier on this season. I'm not so sure that he's going to be able to produce his top-end upside or have a very reliable floor in this matchup. Targeted 9 times last week, caught 4 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. Tua looked very impressive in that loss to the Atlanta Falcons. It was a good game, though. He looked like he was showing promising things for this offense moving forward. But Tre'Davious White is the top corner for this Buffalo Bills defense. He's been shutting players down all season. He has been holding the top receiver on opposing offenses to very modest numbers and point outputs. I don't think DeVante Parker is an exception here. 9 targets last week, 9 targets back in week 2, caught 5 balls, only 42 yards, held out of the end zone, no touchdowns. That's going to keep your points pretty low, and DeVante Parker's output very modest here in this game. Randall Cobb, the Green Bay Packers taking on the Arizona Cardinals. I'm sitting him down here. Why? For those of you that haven't been keeping up with the Packers' COVID testing cases lately, this has become an issue heading into a short week on Thursday Night Football. No Davante Adams, or at least it's very unlikely by the time you're seeing this video. We might have official word because he has to test negative 2 days in a row, and those tests have to be 24 hours separated. If he's unable to do so, one of those times, he's out for this contest. So the same thing happened with Allen Lazard. He was going to be the next man up, and he was actually going to be the player at this spot on the list. Allen Lazard was, as opposed to Randall Cobb. But then Lazard tests positive, or was in a close contact, whatever the case may be. He is in the COVID protocols right now, along with Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry. So they're heading into this game a little bit shorthanded against the undefeated Cardinals. Woohoo, go Packers. I mean, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan if you're new around here to the channel. Not the exciting news I was looking for here this week for a very big matchup for our season. But Randall Cobb's a player who, he's probably going to be Aaron Rodgers. If you're looking for that guy who should be his next favorite target and the guy that he hones in on for this game, the next most viable option after Adams and then after Lazard being gone thereafter is probably Randall Cobb. These two have a great chemistry and a great connection off the field that has really translated to their productivity throughout their careers together on the field. But in games without Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers tends not to just hone in on one target and repeatedly throw the football to one player. He spreads the thing out, and he really keeps that football distributed in a very great variety across a great number of names. You're going to see running backs very involved in the passing game out of the backfield this week. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, probably going to see a healthy share of targets. Robert Tonyan, another player who could be in for a potentially higher target load than he is usually on a week-to-week basis. Marquez Valdez-Scantling coming off the injured reserve could see some time potentially be activated for this game. Who knows? The point being here is that although Randall Cobb looks like the next best player to lock into at the wide receiver position, this is going to be a bit of an unpredictable scenario. Rodgers has had a 5-touchdown pass game in a performance without Davante Adams under Matt LaFleur. But in that game, he was zipping the ball all over the field and keeping that thing distributed to, again, a wide variety of names and not just focusing in on one player. At this point in his career, I don't think Randall Cobb is the caliber of a receiver who can consistently get open play after play and even warrant enough targets or passes coming his way to get that much volume to be productive this week. So if he finds the end zone, makes a splash play, you might be able to get some flex upside here, but the floor is still a bit shaky because at the end of the day, we really don't know who is going to be the guy that finds the mismatch in this matchup. That's why I'm staying away from Cobb here in Week 8. Julio Jones taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Julio has just lost my trust at this point. This is a player who his production has been staggeringly low as compared to the rest of his career. That was kind of to be expected this year. In the pre-draft process, we were assessing this Titans situation as A.J. Brown being the number 1 option and Julio Jones being an efficient but clear second option for Ryan Tannehill in this vertical passing game. Unfortunately, this Titans Big 3 offensive trio really hasn't lived up to expectations or met the markers that we expected them to when the news was released that Julio Jones was being traded for from the Atlanta Falcons. There's still potential here, but what we saw to this point in the season has not been very encouraging. His top game in terms of the most amount of targets he's had come his way has been 8. That was by far his best game of the season, over 120 yards receiving. But outside of that, he hasn't cracked 6 or more targets. I should say he hasn't went over 6 targets. He does have a 1 6-target performance. Everything else has been under that marker. He has not cracked 60 yards receiving outside of that one performance where he went over 120, and there's just been really no floor or no level of dependability for his production on a week-to-week basis. You can't even classify Julio as a boom or bust option at this point because the booms have only occurred once, so there's no consistency or infrequency for us to even base that assessment off of. So Julio Jones against the Indianapolis Colts, this is an A.J. Brown type game for me. It's an exploitable defense, but the looks and the target share has just not been coming Julio's way. And on top of that, if you want to add in the hamstring issues, that's been a very real and prevalent issue for him this season as well. He's already missed 2 games dealing with that chronic hamstring issue that he's been having for what feels like 3 years now, and it can really flare up on any point in time. And I hate to say that about one of the game's all-time greatest wide receivers. The dude still has talent. I mean, you saw that catch he made where the ball was deflected off the defensive back, and then he tracks it down and makes that incredible toe drag catch on the sideline. But that's just Julio Jones doing Julio Jones things. He wasn't supposed to catch that pass, and had he not, think about how much lower his productivity would have been taking that play away from his offensive production. So Julio's a player I'm not confident in at all right now. We've been talking about him as a must-trade asset for a couple weeks now. Move off of him if you still got the chance. He does have boom potential, but again, he has not capitalized or hit on that potential more than one time this season, and that's not very encouraging at all when assessing the situation. And then finally, Allen Robinson. Back-to-back weeks, he's making a list here. This just comes down to the Bears can't pass the football vertically downfield, and it's really sad to see, but Allen Robinson has been a wasted talent for Chicago this year. He's still very talented. We see the routes. The routes are still there. The route running is fantastic. He's a very crisp player, wins at the point of catch. He's excellent. As a Packer fan, Allen Robinson's my favorite Bear to watch. I respect the heck out of this guy. He and Brandin Ayuk have by far been the 2 most talented players to whiff in fantasy this year for whatever reason. The productivity hasn't been there. The volume, the opportunities have not been coming their way. Justin Fields, it's a combination of him holding the ball too long, and the fact that this offensive line can't pass protect at all. He's either getting sacked immediately, or when he does have time to throw the football, he's holding the ball, patting it too long, and not throwing to the open receivers that he should be hitting. So there are a lot of steps forward that need to be taken in the Chicago offense, despite the fact that they've got a secondary in San Francisco in this week's matchup that's very exploitable. I think I would rather even go towards a Darnell Mooney who can be used more as a deep threat and a player who can exploit this secondary on a deep passing pattern, as opposed to Allen Robinson, who in the past has been used as a volume wide receiver and a player who we once knew to have one of the best floors in fantasy. All right, those were our 5 must-sit wide receivers for Week 8 fantasy football action. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave it with a like and click that subscribe button if you're new around here. We're always trying to grow this community and keep building this thing bigger and bigger so that we can help as many of you as possible win those fantasy championships this season. Let us know if you've got questions about your leagues in the comment section below. We get to as many of you as possible on a day-to-day basis before those games kick off. But again, if you want some guaranteed responses, go over, check out SFS Gold on our website, sizzlefantasy.com, or go check out Thrive Fantasy. And again, when you deposit $10 or more using promo code SIZZLE, SIZZLE, you'll get a free month on us. So, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Peace out.